We all need to be more involved in building the future. Whenever I give talks about AI and the future of the world, I often realize that average citizens are less engaged in the AI conversation than they need to be. When it comes to how democracies work or how we can drive forward change, it requires all of us as citizens and as individuals and communities to start speaking truth to power. Whether that comes from something as small as writing a letter to your MP or starting a campaigning group or a community interest company, we need to be aware that we all have a role to play to stop tech feudalism and artificial intelligence becoming a power for destruction and control. When I think about areas of society like automation being used for defense as opposed to being used to protect lives, I become aware that people aren't doing enough to be able to protect ourselves. We have to remember that the way that these societies and the way our society in the UK operates is through democratic power. And oftentimes we can feel like we're losing that power. When we look at parties like Reform and even the current Labour government and how detached they are from the will of real people, we become aware that the average person's voice doesn't matter. But this isn't true. When we think throughout history, whether that's the civil rights movement, whether that's the suffragettes, we can see normal people banding together and making real change. The only way these people are able to do that is through individual and collective action. I often see protests or civil disobedience for Extinction Rebellion or against individual tech companies for their impact and their influence on certain conflicts. But the reality is that this is a small piece of the pie. We need to build parallel economic structures, new communities and new ways of doing things. If we rely on the same companies, the same governments and the same individuals to do things again, we will have the same results. I do not want to get to 2029 and see a Reform and Conservative coalition because people were too afraid to speak truth to power. At the end of the day, that's all this is. Power for too long has been unchecked. Whether that's governments, whether that's defense companies, whether that's big tech. And it's up to us as individuals to be able to stand together and to make a better world through this action. And it can start with something small like a petition or a letter. It could start then spiral into something larger, like whistleblowing if you work in a large company that you know is doing wrong. At the end of the day, we will live and die by the deeds that we have on this planet and during this lifetime. Every single religious philosophy, every single spiritual tradition agrees on one thing. It agrees that the deeds that we do in this life, the actions, the words that we commit to will have an impact on not only our own lives and the lives of those around us, but on the life that we move on to next. So whether it's a sense of duty to that spiritual self in you, or whether it's a sense of duty to your fellow beings, please stand up and make your voices heard.